and welcome to the conversation. Welcome back to Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias, and today we're talking about This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 11.
As always, with almost every single one of our broadcasts, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert!
So we're going to be talking about this episode, and, we usually talk about larger seasons as a whole.
Yeah,
but
or nerdier things.
Yeah, but we felt like with this show, there's a lot of humanity, a lot of kind of faith packed into each episode, that it's hard to really kind of talk about the whole season without talking about all of the themes that are brought up in each episode. So we're probably going to go back and do the rest of the season eventually, maybe during the summer when there's less going on.
Yeah. Just as like what could we do this episode? I know, let's just revisit This Is Us.
Yeah.
So this will be like a sneak peek to that episode.
Yeah. Or when we have our in-between movie moments that we'll be talking about more of This Is Us. Anyway, recap of The Right Thing to Do, which is the episode name for this episode. And this one, there was a lot of
There's
things
a lot of
that
stuff going on.
Jack and Rebecca are told that they're going to be having triplets, and obviously, as with any married couple, with their first pregnancy, this is, hits them pretty hard, and they're trying to figure out finances during this entire thing.
Yeah, like where to put the babies. Because they put the down payment on another house, and now they're realizing, oh wait, this isn't going to be big enough. What are we going to do?
Well, on an apartment, yeah.
Oh yeah, an apartment.
And you have Randall, who is struggling with his biological father's sexual identity, which it comes to find out later that it's more about the struggle with his biological father no longer spending as much time there. But we'll get to that. Then you have Kevin struggling with
Sloane
and Olivia. Yeah.
Olivia, by the way, can I just say I really
Olivia?
No. I don't like Olivia at all. Like when I saw her come back, I was like, seriously, like what the heck with her hair? Can I just slip that in right there? Like her hair, really? You couldn't just like get a nice cut? Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
Rant over.
And then you have Kate struggling with her feelings for Toby and with actually confessing her feelings to Toby. And Toby, who did not die.
But we'll talk more about that in controversial issues.
Yeah. So Toby, who did not have a heart attack. It was more of a cardiac arrhythmia, as they say in the episode. And so we'll get to a lot of the stuff. So that's everything that happened in this episode. I want to go into the whys. This is I want this part of it all to kind of talk about questions that I ask about society as a whole, primarily because one, I am a little bit socially inept, and two is that these are the things that even when I do it, I'm like, why in the world did I do that?
Yeah.
And why did these characters do that? One of the biggest things in this episode is, why aren't they talking to each other? Like, seriously, a lot of these problems could be handled by sitting down and having a conversation. And, the funny thing is that in the end of the episode, that's exactly what all of them do.
Yep.
They sit down and talk. And throughout this entire thing, I keep wondering, why aren't you talking?
Yeah, well, and it's... and not all of the issues are resolved. Or, like, you may see that this is going to be an issue, like, later down as the show progresses. Because they still don't talk or still don't, like, say what they need to say to the people that are in their lives.
Well, and, I mean, I think that Kevin's poor choice of words in this episode...
that made me cringe. Like,
I mean, you could tell that part of him didn't mean it. Part of him didn't mean the fact that it's the right thing to do, even though it's not what you want to do.
I think it was more like, I think he meant that to be more of an internal dialogue, and the problem is with well, Miguel and I have, like, background in acting, so a lot of times, like, we can see this kind of stuff. Like, I can see, like, bits of what he says and does, like, in my own personality. And that's one of those things, like, you forget that some of the things should just be an internal dialogue, and you just go out and you say it. And so I think that might have been something that happened.
Yeah. And to be fair, he didn't know that Sloane was standing in the background there. And that was...
He was just trying... I think he knew Olivia, too, is kind of volatile.
Yeah.
And to try to, like...
She's a powder keg. I mean, he's already said some real stuff to her before, and she went off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So...
She's...
I think he needs to have a conversation with Sloane.
I think that'll happen
look,
eventually.
I'm sorry. I know that she's... But, yeah, maybe next episode. And
well,
so.
Honestly, if she ever lets him talk to her alone again, like...
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of hurtful. Like, what if you were on that side of that conversation and, you know, you were hearing something and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet. He's saying all these nice things about me and he clearly likes me. And then all of a sudden he says it's the right thing to do. Then all of a sudden you're like the pity case.
Well, and even when you don't want to, that's the part there that I think is the key. That's the hurtful part of it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's what I think is like... That was part of it that I don't think that he meant. I don't think that, you know, he really, really wanted to say to Olivia. And the actors do a wonderful job of kind of portraying, you know, these characters and making them fully fledged characters instead of two-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they seem like real human beings. Like Kevin seems like a real human being. Randall seems like a real human being.
Yep.
Granted, they all seem to have way too much money. You know, a lot of these things that they're not struggling with, where their parents, you know, had that struggle, and that's kind of, you know, what the other side of that thing is. You have the not talking of Jack to his father. You know, he doesn't talk to his father for years, and you see why at the very beginning of the episode that, you know, his father was beating his mother, and you know, he's not talking to his father. And this brings me to my next thing that I ask, why do they avoid their problems? You know, every one of them kind of avoids their problems instead of facing them head on.
Yep.
And I mean, this in a big instance is with Jack. And I can completely understand why he wouldn't want to acknowledge his father is still around.
Yeah.
Or even want to talk to his father because of, you know, those things that he saw his father doing. And I mean, boys and their fathers already have a very complicated relationship. You know, it's that struggle to want to be better than that man, to want to be a better human being, a better, you know, whatever, father, and you know, saying this as a man, as, you know, who has constantly had a struggle with his own father in his life, is, you know, it's hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, I understand. I resonated so much with Jack in this episode. And even though my father wasn't abusive, my father was there for the most part. He was a good man. He tried his hardest to make sure that he provided for his family. Provided.
Yeah, provided.
And, you know, but still there was those issues that I had with my father that, you know, there was, my dad's a hard man to get a hold of, and he's really, it's hard to communicate with him. And, you know, I can understand the not communicating with him level on that front is, you know, it's just hard to communicate with him.
Yeah, because sometimes he's legit out of the country. So, and we don't ever know, like, when he's going out of country and when he's back, so that's part of the problem, too.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a deeper issue that you can tell that Rebecca was having than just the money. You know, Jack trying to make things better by going out and borrowing the money, by selling his car, by, you know, going and buying the house and all this other stuff to try to make that better, but it's still avoiding that problem, I think. And it's kind of, and that's part going back to why don't they talk?
Yep.
Why doesn't she tell him what the problem is? And I think it's just because we're so afraid of hurting ourselves. But anyway, I'll get to that in the next part here. But, you know, because I'm just asking the why questions right now.
Yep.
And the last thing that I wanted to ask why is about is lying. There's a lot of lying going on throughout this episode, and I think that especially going back to the Kevin Olivia scene.
Yep.
That's what I mean? Is that I think that he was lying to her that it's the right thing to do. But I think we talked about that. Is that he knew that Olivia is a powder keg, that she could easily be set off, and that he's trying to spare her feelings.
Trying to do this in the most, like, I don't know, like volatile way possible.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's almost like you look at her wrong and like she could like go off. So,
well, and I think he saw that because of the way the director acted.
Yep.
The director,
opened it, like he was like, "Oh my God, thank God you're back!" Like, we can finish this now, like with you. And I was just like, seriously, like so I've had directors. I've had both kinds of directors. I've had the directors where our lead like disappeared. And then all of a sudden they come back and they're like, "Oh, good, now we can finish the show. Now we don't have to worry about it." And then I've also had other directors that when the lead did that and came back, they were like, "Hell no, I'm not going to work with you again. Like, how do I know you're not going to just like up and leave during the run of the show?"
Yeah.
So I've had it both ways.
I've never really been in a show that a lead just kind of quit in the middle like that.
Yep, I have.
I've been in a show where I know the lead was a complete diva about her role.
I think we've all been in those shows. Almost every other show is one of those shows.
Well, the show that we met during, that was one of those shows.
What are you talking about?
So, you weren't the lead in that show.
I know I wasn't the lead in that show, but I'm trying to protect the lead.
She's not going to listen to this podcast.
Probably not.
Well, if she does, then, we apologize. But admittedly, you know what you did.
Well, and she was young.
Yeah.
That's, and that's another thing too, like, these people aren't young. Like, you haven't learned these lessons already in life?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's in their 30s. That's the big thing, like, that they all turned 30. Like, that's how the, like, season started.
Yeah, and they're all upper range millennials. My range of millennials, where we're
except for Jack and Rebecca, obviously, but...
Well, yeah. Jack and...
We're talking about the triplets.
Yeah, and Jack and Rebecca, it's... what happens during their 30s, how kind of similar situations are going on back in the 70s, as opposed to now with now millennials.
Yeah.
Let's see. You also have the avoiding. You have Toby avoiding surgery.
Yeah.
For his heart to get it fixed.
Well, and you have Kate avoiding answering Toby, like right before he goes into surgery, and boy does she regret it. Like the whole time she's like panicking, she's more worried about like, oh my gosh, like I did not say it back.
Yeah.
Like I should have said it back, and she realizes that, so that's good.
Well, see, and this is the thing about the show is that every single one, it's you can see yourself dealing with that situation. Mm-hmm. You can see yourself kind of going through the motions like each of these characters does. And the funny thing is, these are the questions that I ask about it. But I'm wondering, would I be doing the same thing? As I would probably be doing the same thing. I would probably question myself, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I think this is primarily why we should do episode at a time rather than the whole season, because there's so much
going on. Yeah.
I mean, moving on to faith, showing throughout all of this is that I think that every religion, does this, and I think these are the main points that major religions do with their congregants and as a whole, because most of those congregations, most of those communities, are seen as family to people.
Oh, you're talking about like the church as a whole, like doesn't talk about things, like avoids things, they lie about stuff for the sake of their congregation.
Yeah, and they don't talk about things, and primarily they don't talk about them because they're tough questions. I was having a conversation with somebody this morning, was that the worst thing a religion can do, worst thing a spiritual leader can do, is to say that he has all the answers. Because he doesn't. Spiritual leaders don't have the answers. No, they're the ones that are supposed to inspire the questioning. It's that moment when you say that you have all the answers, when you feel like you've got it all figured out.
Then you need to if a spiritual leader says that, you need to hightail it out of there.
Yeah. Is that the questions are the big part of our faith, and the meaning of faith that we talked about in our very first episode is that it should be driving you to do something. If you're not questioning, it means you're not talking about it. You're not opening up about it. You're not opening up about the doubts that you have about whatever it is. That questions are important for us to come together as a people, as humanity and as communities, to really talk about some issues. And I mean, this is going on in our country as a whole. So we don't talk to each other. Is that we're completely divided, and this is, across the boards. And the problem is that we think we're talking by starting these stupid social media arguments, but we don't. We don't actually talk.
No.
We just start throwing words at each other and thinking that it's going to do some good, but it's not.
No, and the problem with that too is, and everybody knows this. There's no point in arguing with internet trolls. No point. They're not going to change their mind. They're not going to change your mind. There's no point unless you actually know these people personally. They're not going to take you seriously. They're not going to hear your stories as truths, like people that you interact with every day do.
Yeah. And that brings it to avoiding, is that because of this. And on some level, I want to blame social media, but I know that it's just because we as millennials, we grew up and we understand how to communicate digitally.
Yeah.
That we did not really kind of figure out how to communicate analog. We don't know how to interact with other human beings in real life. We know how to interact with them on social media and digitally, but we don't really know how to interact in real life.
Heck, there's dating apps, no one ever, just meets somebody at a bar anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody goes out and, tries to meet somebody new.
Well,
that's
granted,
just not
that
a
is
thing anymore.
sort of dangerous now.
That's true.
But, we avoid these things. Especially pain. We avoid talking about our pain, and the problem is that ends up welling up and completely eating us and consuming us alive. And this is one of the things that eventually that we'll talk about, because this is the reason why This Is Us has become such a big show for me. Is the very first episode, I was bawling because I was audibly weeping. I was sobbing.
Now I'm starting to cry just thinking about it. So thanks, Miguel.
When the doctor is talking to Jack, is saying, you took the sourest lemon and how to make lemonades to help other people with it. And we'll talk more about this, in the future episode when we come back to that episode. But for us, here's a little vulnerability for us as a married couple. We went through 2 miscarriages. And
2 miscarriages and not being able to get pregnant as well.
Yeah.
For a while there.
And that just tore a huge gaping wound in my life. And still I don't know how to talk about it with people. I don't know how to open it up, and granted, there's these ways that I'm working through some of this stuff. I'm working through that hurt and pain, but I think it ruined me for a lot of things. It ruined me for church work and stuff like this. That it was a bad thing. That I was so wounded, and I didn't know how to help people because wounded people can't help other wounded people, really.
No.
And is that we don't talk about these things. That's an important thing to talk about, and we don't talk about that in our faith communities. Is we don't really talk about our pain, and that's the one place you should. It's the one place where you should be able to turn to, is to be able to say, "Hey, look, I'm hurting." And when it just happened, luckily I was working in this beautiful community that we went
Shout
to
out
church.
to Jamestown.
Yeah. If you're in Jamestown and go to an Episcopal church, I would recommend St. Luke's Episcopal Church. Great community there. Was working there, and the Sunday after our first miscarriage, we were both weeping in church. And the great thing about this community is they didn't come up and ask us what was wrong. They came up, sat, and wept with us. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. That is caring in its most pure form. That's love. And I think that's what's beautiful about this show is that I think that these are people, real human beings acting as humans. Mm-hmm. They're acting honest in their faith. A shout out to my...
I get it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We don't talk about these awkward things in our communities because we fear that people will think differently of us. Imagine, yeah, I've got two beautiful women that are interested in me. I got to let one of them down. So, how Randall's kind of like joking with Kevin in that one part. He's like, oh, that's a real problem? No, that's not a problem. And I think that in itself, that's what a family was doing. They were actually talking through their problems with each other. And, they helped each other. They gave each other the courage to actually go and talk to the people that they were having problems with. We don't talk about reality with each other. We talk about this fake reality that we assume that each other knows about. That's why I have such a big problem with what I call Christianese, is that these people having conversations in their own language, their own dialect, and you hear this all the time with people. Oh, just ask Jesus in your heart, or oh, just pray about it, and all this other stuff. But that's avoiding reality in my opinion. That's you saying, no, I don't want to deal with your reality. You just go off and do your own thing. And in the show, granted, it's a show. It's a scripted dramedy. But they go and they deal with their problems. And granted, it takes us a lot longer as human beings in real life to go and do those things. But
what I like to bring up that like Randall and Kevin, like, if you've been watching the show, you know that they've had a rift in the relationship, and it started out when they were really, really young. Kevin was jealous of Randall. Randall couldn't understand why he was, because Randall was having his own problems, and right there, they were avoiding their their brother's reality.
Yeah.
They wouldn't sit down and talk to figure out what was going on with them at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Because they were teenage boys who only cared about themselves.
Teenage girls are the same way. You can't just generalize teenage boys.
Okay, teenagers. They were just teenagers.
There you go. Yes, the gender neutral term of just teenagers.
Just teenagers. Yep. And let me just say, not all teenagers are like that, but
yes,
having worked with teenagers ourselves,
yeah,
it's more common than you'd like.
Well, and the final thing that I was asking why about is the lying. Is that we do that in our faith communities as well. We lie to each other.
Yep.
As we try to make our lives out to be something else that they're not, and we lie to people about our doubts and about the things that are going on in our lives, and to
make ourselves look better.
Even this morning, we went to church, and somebody asked me, "So how are you doing?" And there was right immediately crossed through my mind is just to say good. But to be honest, I'm not doing good. There's some things in my life that I feel like I'm not completely okay with. I'm not doing the best that I can. Mm-hmm. And that's so I after some hesitation I said, well, I'm doing the best that I can at the moment. And I think that
was a good answer.
That's that's the honest answer. That's the real answer, is that I'm doing the best that I can at the moment. I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be the best human that I can be, and that's for each their own. And yeah. So anyway, we lie to each other. We do these things, and we just kind of I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Gosh, because life could be so much better if people just didn't lie. You know, like I know that some people are like, oh, well, you know, it's okay just not to tell them the truth. Not like to avoid having to say anything. That's not really lying. If you just avoid it. Or there's people who are like, it's okay to say like a little white lie now and then, but I just, no.
Well, and I can see where some of those people are is, you know, trying to save a relationship. Like there are some things that some people just, you know, that they just can't handle the reality of something. And that, you know, I don't see that much of a problem with it.
Well, but that's when you just say, you know, I would either like one, I just would rather not talk about it right now. Like there's other ways to like go about it instead of just like lying or like flat out avoiding it. You know, you could at least acknowledge that it's there and just say like, I just need my space, or I just don't want to talk about it right now, which is fine because at least you're acknowledging that it exists.
So I'm thinking that the major takeaway from this episode for me would be the same thing that I took away from a Doctor Who episode last year, 2 years ago, because it was 2015. Oy, it's 2017.
It is 2017.
It was in 2015 that episode of Doctor Who where, you know, is that beautiful speech by Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, just, you know, telling them that they are going to have to do what they had to do all along, which was just sit down and talk. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that's, you know, just being honest with each other is not avoiding the problem, is going and facing the problem head on.
Yep.
And I mean, so many of us millennials have deal with anxiety, and I think it's because we don't know how to communicate in analog. We don't know how to communicate offline with each other, and facing a problem, facing a conflict, it's much better done when you do it, you know, head on, and you kind of, you know, talk it out with a person.
Yep.
And granted, I've been guilty of avoiding my problems a lot in my own life, but you know, that's you know, a takeaway that I'm taking from this episode.
Well, and mine, like, just like a little background about me, and I'm sure that people who know me probably know this about me, but when I was in high school, like, I was pretty much a pathological liar. Like, I tried to make myself look fantastic. Like, I tried to make myself, like, interesting, and people wanted to be my friends. Like, I really, 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 like, needed that, but little did I know, it just made things worse, and it had the opposite effect. And so when I went into college, like, I just, like, was like, okay, this is my clean slate. I am not going to lie. And if I start to lie, I'm just going to be like, no, that was a lie, and I'm going to tell the truth. And I've done that before. I've stopped. I'm sure some people who've known me, like, know I've done this. Like, I've stopped and, like, wait a second, no, that's not true. And, like, just told them the truth about it. And it kind of shocks people sometimes. Because now I'm just really open, and I'm, like, an open book. So, like, when people, like, ask about my opinion, or if they are asking, like, how I'm doing, I'm very open and honest, and I don't think they're ready for that if they don't know me. So, but I don't know. I think I'm going to continue just to be that way.
So that was your takeaway from this episode, was to
continue.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Moving on to our controversial issues, we've got a few, so we'll try to get through these in the next 15 minutes. But
we can do it.
The first one here is the bisexuality and sexual fluidity. I really, really liked how William put it to Randall, because he knew that this was not what Randall's problem was.
Yeah.
You know, but I really like what he said, is that I'm an artist, and artists primarily know that sexuality is fluid. And I think that's so true about us, is that it's all about what our wants are. And the funny thing is, as human beings, I don't think we know what we really want. Mm-mm. Is that we, you know, our tastes kind of change from day to day. And, you know, granted, you know, there is one kind of overarching, you know, meta taste that we have, you know.
Mainly because, you know, survival.
Yeah. Like, for instance, for me, it's that heterosexuality with my wife. You know, I plan to remain monogamous with my wife, and that's, I want to remain in that, my sexuality there, even though that I know that, there are different days that, maybe we want to do something different or whatever. But I think this is a big controversial issue, especially in a lot of faith communities, is the fluidity of sexuality. Mm-hmm. And I think this is another thing that in faith communities, they really just need to have a conversation about. Need to sit down and just talk about it.
Yeah.
Is to admit, okay, people have sex and their tastes change.
What?
Yeah. I know, and it's instead of like this weird Puritan kind of ideology that we have in this country, in Western society, is that,
Sex is bad.
We don't want to admit that we have sex, and it's there. People do it. It happens.
Well, and I think I have to say though, like I think as especially the millennial generation grew up and along with that kind of brought our own ideology with us now with you being able to marry whoever you want. You can marry whoever you want now. And because of that, you see a lot of churches and congregations also going, okay, well, I guess the world hasn't ended yet.
Yeah.
So maybe this is fine, which we all kind of knew anyway, but...
Well, then you also have the LGBT community who, kind of looks down upon, bisexuality, is that, people can't be bisexual. They're either gay or they're not. And I think this is a huge controversial issue, and I don't know why it is. I mean, you understand that sexuality is fluid. I don't, there are some things that I don't understand that I'm still trying to understand. I'm still questioning about gender fluidity. Is that I don't particularly feel like gender is a thing that can be fluid, but I have friends who, they're struggling with
At
that.
least you recognize it. You recognize it though.
Yeah. I recognize it. I recognize that there are people who are having issues with that. They don't they don't even understand their own gender. That's fine. But at least they're open about it. They're open and they're honest about it, and they don't try to shove it down somebody else's throat or something. There are sometimes when our mutual friend they have issues with some people having issues with them, but.
No, I mean, honestly, if somebody, was like,
Yeah.
I don't like you, Kathy, because you are a lady, then I'm going to be like, what?
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying
That's
is
who I
that,
am.
that's a controversial issue in itself, because I think people just, they don't sit down and talk. They don't try to begin to understand the problems that they have with each other.
Yep.
And that's what I'm trying to say is that I feel that especially with this, because I don't understand it fully, is that, I'm going to try to understand it. I'm going to try to talk to people and understand it. Is if you have a problem with bisexuality or with homosexuality, or the fact that sexuality is fluid, talk to somebody about it. Talk to somebody who understands that it is, and try to figure out why they understand that way. And anyway, that's what I was just trying to say.
Yep.
Not trying to behoove our friend. I was just trying to say that, that this person in particular, that this is the person that's helping me to try to understand this. And I think that, those people who have problems with them should go and talk to that person and can try to figure it out.
Yep.
Second big controversial issue that is brought up again and again with each of these episodes that I'm still surprised that people are like, oh my goodness, why in the world does Kate have a problem with her weight and blah, blah, blah. And this whole big weight issue is a big problem for people. And I'm not completely sure why that is. Sorry about that. I had a phone call. So we were talking about weight as being one of the big issues. And I think that people just have a problem with the fact that the actors are overweight and they're not as pretty as most, actors are.
Well, I think there's two people who are upset about this. There's the group who are upset because she is so overweight. And then there's the other group who are upset, who are like, why are you making her character want to lose weight?
Yeah.
She should be happy with who she is. And, I mean, I don't know, do you want to speak to that? I mean, you, at one point in time, you know...
Well, and the funny thing is that in our artwork for this week's episode, showing one of our wedding photos, and you can see that both of us are overweight. Me more so, is that.
Yep.
Sorry,
that was sorry.
Yeah, no, I was 80 pounds overweight, and the thing is that I wasn't happy with who I was, and I was wanting to lose weight for not just for you, but for myself as well.
Yeah, like health
and I think
reasons too.
That's what makes her a real character, is that she doesn't want to do it for other people. She wants to do it for her.
Yeah.
And the fact is, she's a real human being struggling with this and trying to figure out how to do this and how to do her life and struggling with the surgery issue. And that's, something else that we'll talk about in another episode because, obviously, but. And I think that because people don't understand the issue, they don't understand, where they're coming from, then they don't understand, their motivations for things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this comes from my own theater training. And sorry, I keep clicking my pen. I'm going to put it down. Is that theater training is that we were, kind of taught to figure out what the motivations were for each of our characters.
Yep.
Is to try to figure out what the motivations were for other human beings. And I think that's, when you approach life that way is I think it's really helpful when you approach other human beings, is trying to figure out why they do what they do. Mm-hmm. Kind of why they're wanting to do that. Those people who have a problem with her being on the show because she is an overweight actress and because Toby is overweight. Oh, by the way, Toby is the actor who plays Toby is in Stranger Things.
Yep.
And when we were watching through it last week, we were both kind of like,
who's that guy?
Actor, he seems so familiar.
Yeah, his voice is so familiar. Like, I kind of recognize him, but I'm not entirely sure. Yep, Stranger Things. He's the guy who owns a restaurant. I
had to do some very... deep internet sleuthing because a lot of the cast list didn't list him.
Yeah, because he's dying.
Benny or
he's the guy who owns the restaurant who takes who takes 11 in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just those schools of thought are just, especially the one that are she just needs to be happy with who she is. It's kind of dangerous, and this is coming from somebody who lost weight for health issues. She wants to lose the weight partly because of health issues. And I understand, you should love yourself. You should be happy with who you are. Totally get that. But that, I think that needs to be focused more on your personality and not necessarily your health. Because you shouldn't, most people, when they have a heart attack, aren't happy about the fact they had a heart attack,
Yeah.
So, I know I have to tread a little lightly on this because it is so controversial, but my view is if you are overweight and you're not happy with your weight and you want to lose weight, you should be able to without having to feel shamed by the people who feel like you shouldn't lose weight because you should be happy with yourself.
Exactly. And, oh, my goodness, there was this moment when I was in the gym as an adult.
Oh, yeah,
exercising and trying to lose weight. And there were these women who were making fun of me because, I looked funny on the treadmill. And, seriously, that destroyed my confidence. That was,
And I knew one of the people, too.
Yeah, and it was bad. So... this is one of those things that, is understanding somebody else's motivation. Is that sit down and talk with them, have a conversation with them, understand who they are and where they're coming from.
Yeah. And if somebody's trying to better themselves, motivate them. Don't bring them down. God, that just irritates me.
Well, and one of the last controversial issues.
We'll just throw this in real quick because we're almost out of time. But
yeah, is well the big thing that we just talked about with the faith and talking about a lot of the religious communities is this consumer approach to religion is that we just go to get what we want from it and not to actually have a community.
Yeah.
Is that we just go for our Eucharist
spoon,
on Sunday
to be
or
spoon-fed our faith.
you know. And we don't actually want to be challenged. We just go to get what we want and not. And good Lord, this irritates me so much. Is that this is the way that we treat our churches. This is why they're failing. Is because we treat them as our fast food spirituality on Sunday mornings, and that's not okay.
No,
they should be a community. They should be your faith. Your faith family.
Another thing that irritates me too are those people who go just to show face.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I'm part of this congregation. The one that's all fancy and stuff. Like, and I've encountered many churches like that, and it's just good. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be coming here just to say you come here.
Yeah.
You should be coming here because you get something out of it.
Well, the reason
not status, but get something like faith-wise out of it.
And the reason why I brought this up was because of the fact that it was a controversial issue that the writers didn't have Toby actually have a heart attack. And this is one of those things that, granted, I can see from a writer's perspective they kind of wrote themselves into a hole that way. Kate would not want to go through this with the surgery. She would actually probably
be fearful of it.
Completely tear herself apart after that, and it would have been bad. They would have lost a lot of viewers. They would have lost the show probably if they killed Toby. And
people love Toby. I love Toby.
But I can understand that side of things, but also I think that people just need to calm down. You need to understand why the writers did what they did.
Yeah.
Anyway. With that being said, that was our episode on Season 1, Episode 11 of This Is Us.
I'm doing jazz fingers.
The right thing to do. Again, we ask that you join the conversation by sending us an email at honestfaithconvos@gmail.com. You can also find us on Patreon if you would like to support us and what we do. That would be fantastic. We would love you so much forever.
Forever. We may even, the first person who donates will get a shout out on the program.
Yeah. You'll probably get a shout out anyway if you donate anyway. But go on Patreon. We're Honest Faith on there. You can find us that way. Also, brand new website just got up is thehonestfaith.com. And you can go and check out my other creative projects and what I'm doing during this transition time.
Yes.
So, with that being said, we invite you to join the conversation.